down, hey, you gotta keep your head up, oh, and you can let your head down, hey, I know it's hard.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Carolyn Holt Show. I am thrilled and excited to be spending a Monday after. I can't believe we are well into September, and fall is on the way. It's feeling much better here in Los Angeles. We were suffering from a lot of humidity, but now things have cooled down a bit, and it's okay. But tonight's show, I'm going to be talking about public enemy number one. And when I was telling some of my friends and family what I was going to talk about tonight, they were going, well, what's public enemy number one? Well, for me, public enemy number one is my addiction to sugar. And in doing the research, I'm not the only one addicted to sugar. Americans, period, are addicted to sugar, and we need to do something about that because, as my friend would say, as quiet as it's kept, sugar, especially white sugar, is just not good for you. But that has nothing to do with our desire to consume a lot of sugar. And like I said, I am certainly guilty of eating way too much sugar, and I'm determined that before the holidays get here, I'm going to do something about my sugar consumption and intake, because I do realize that my favorite sweet potato pie has a lot of sugar in it, and if I want to have that for Thanksgiving through Christmas, then I need to do something about my sweet tooth way before the holiday. But laying all jokes aside, sugar really is a major problem. And a lot of people struggle with it, and it does a lot of damage to our bodies. And I guess because we can't always physically see the damage, we sometimes don't realize how bad the damage is. But it does a lot of damage, and I have decided that I am going to really make a major effort to fix that. And I believe that some of you out there probably struggle with the same situation, in that you love sweets the same as I do. But we know that just because we love something does not mean that we should partake. So, like I said, I really am going to make a concerted effort to do something about my sweet tooth. But according to the American Heart Association, they believe that sugar is just as dangerous as fats, and there are some foods that they say that people have on a regular basis in terms of sugar. They have these foods on a regular basis, and they are some of the main culprits in terms of creating not only our sweet tooth, but wreaking havoc regarding our sugar intake. And what I realized is that they recommend that you should limit your sugar intake for women to 16 calories a day. That's all you should get from eating sugar. No more than 100 calories a day, which is 6 teaspoons of sugar. So 100 calories, 6 teaspoons of sugar for women. And for men, no more than 150 calories. And that equates to 9 teaspoons of sugar. And it says that the foods that contain the most added sugar, the processed foods, especially in terms of the way that they are prepared. And the culprits on the list would be regular soft drinks, sugars, which are fructose from fruit and lactose from milk, candy, cake, cookies, pies, fruit drinks such as, punch and Kool-Aid and Sunny Delight and all those things. I think, personally, I have a real problem with Sunny Delight, but there are a lot of people who actually love Sunny Delight, but it's not good for you. Dairy desserts and milk products. And grains, and one of the grains that they have on the list is cinnamon toast and honey nut waffles. Now, when I saw that, it reminds me of the cereal. There's this cereal out there, a cinnamon toast crunch, and I was like, oh my God. A lot of people that I know, they love cinnamon toast crunch, but it's not in your best interest. But like I said, the American Heart Association, they've done a lot of research, and they have concluded that we have to do something to adjust the sugar in our diets because it's affecting the insulin levels. And insulin is a hormone, and it controls the amount of glucose in your blood. So it's a very important hormone for not only men, but men and women. And it's if not controlled, it can cause a lot of problems in terms of your overall health. So in dealing with insulin, here's what Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson recommends. She's a brain and cognitive scientist. So she does a lot of studying and research regarding sugar. And she says that the sugar industry, which I found very interesting, the sugar industry has funded research since the 1960s to cast doubt on sugar's role in heart disease, claiming that fat was the biggest culprit. And I know that I have certainly heard that, but just dealing with my own life and my own issues and concerns, I can I can say that I know that I eat way too much sugar, and the main culprits for me on the list would be cake and cookies, because I love pastries. That's my sugar addiction. You know, some people, they like candy, and some people, you know, they like other things in terms of sugar. They, like I said, the drinking of the fruit juices. But the culprit for me is pastries. I can eat pastry and be happy, but I do know that vegetables are important and a overall nutritious diet is important. But I like I said, I'm very guilty of eating too much sugar. But she says that the sugar industry has convinced Americans in particular that fat was the main culprit in heart disease. But it says, but now a growing number of health experts say that sugar is driving the nation's obesity rates, higher rates of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and a host of mental health problems. often, at least I didn't associate one's mental health at all with the possibility of what sugar can do. But when I looked at some of the things that they mention regarding how sugar can affect your mental health, this is according to Psychology Today. It says, in terms of your mental health, depression is very much affected by sugar. It says that high blood sugar followed by a crash can accentuate the symptoms of mood disorders. And I don't know if you work on a job where you have a lot of coworkers. I have certainly seen this on some jobs that I've had where you couldn't figure out what happens to some of these people. But after reading this, I get a clearer understanding of, their mood changes, because many of them sit a lot of the day and they consume a lot of sweet things, and they bring a lot of things into the office and share. And by 11 o'clock in the morning, they've consumed a lot of sugar, and you can tell by their mood. It also says that sugar is the root of chronic inflammation, which impacts the immune system, the brain, and other systems in the body. And it has been noted that countries such as ours, who have a high sugar intake, tend to have a high rate of depression. And when I thought about that, there are a lot of people who struggle with depression, and I don't know whether they've ever even thought about, how much their diet affects their mood. But according to the research, it does. It also says that in a study by researchers at Yale University, the simple sight of a milkshake activated the same reward centers of the brain as cocaine among people with addictive eating habits. And I that really affected me, because I'm addicted to ice cream, and in particular, those shakes that you can buy at like Jack in the Box and McDonald's, the strawberry shakes and the vanilla shakes. I certainly could have participated in that study, because I tell you, I think it certainly activates something in my brain, because I love those things. And I do know that they are not good for me. And, for 2 or 3 months at a time, I can easily stay away from them. But for whatever reason, something happens, and you know how it is. You stayed away, but something happens, and you start to go back to your old bad habits, and you start to eat those things again. And so that is one of the very addictive and bad habits that I have. It says that a 2007 study showed that rats actually preferred sugar water to cocaine. Rats given fatty and sugary products demonstrated classic symptoms of addiction, including tolerance and withdrawal symptoms when the products were taken away. Well, I know this. It's not a situation where products or anything have been taken away from me, but, if I don't have milkshakes for a period of time, I do miss them. And so while this behavior is attributed to rats, I think we as human beings have to take a look at some of this research and some of this information, because we are very much, if we are addicted to sugar, we are very much guilty of some of the same behavior, and it can look the same in us, I guess, as it does in terms of lab studies. But I'm going to go to break, and when I come back, I'm going to continue to share some information in terms of how sugar is affecting our bodies, and in a not so good way. Stay with me.
Mastering math can be big fun. Fun for you and everyone. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Why not turn math time into fun time with Math Maze, the new game craze? Get yours today at mathmaze.us.
Mom, now you can help your son master math and have big fun. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Make sure your child owns the skills necessary for success in high school algebra. Get it now. Mathmaze.us. Mathmaze.us.
And now you can help your daughter play it like you know you oughta. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Math Maze cards contain both Spanish and English. Get yours today at mathmaze.us. That's mathmaze.us.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight for the Carolyn Holt Show. Tonight we're talking about what I call public enemy number one, our addiction to sugar, and mine in particular, because I certainly have a sugar addiction, but I've decided I'm going to work on it. I'm going to do better, and I'm going to do something about it. Earlier I was sharing some information that suggests sugar has a very bad effect on mental health. And according to Psychology Today, it says that this 2007 study showed that rats actually preferred sugar water to cocaine. And I was saying that for me, I certainly understand this because I believe that I am one of those people. I've never tried cocaine, but I am certainly one of those people that anything sweet. As a child, I remember convincing my mother to let me have ice cream and honey buns over eating a meal. And because I suffered anemia really badly, she would sometimes grant me my request. But even from a child, I've always loved sugar. But I do know that there's a price to pay because tooth decay is a major problem when it comes to sugar. And most dentists will tell you, definitely do something about your sugar intake. But in terms of sugar and how it affects our mental health, anxiety is another aspect of how sugar comes into play. And it says that the standard American diet, which is full of sugar and fat, appears to worsen anxiety and impair the body's ability to cope with stress. Sugar can cause blurry vision, difficulty thinking, and fatigue. Now, diet alone cannot cure anxiety, but it can minimize the symptoms. It can boost your energy and improve the body's ability to cope with stress. And so, I know I had never thought very much about sugar affecting one's mood, but like I said, if you work in an office setting, you can pretty much tell the people in the office that are affected by sugar, because they can exhibit some very interesting behaviors. It also says that in terms of your mental health, learning and memory can definitely be affected by sugar. It says that sugar can compromise cognitive abilities. And in a study here at UCLA, 6 weeks of taking a fructose solution, which is similar to soda, rats forgot how to get out of a maze, but rats that ate a nutritious diet found their way out a lot faster. And it says that if insulin is affected, damage can affect the brain cells that fuel learning and memory formation. And if you have young children, especially children that are in elementary school, this is something that you want to give some thought to, because there's the belief that a lot of parents take their kids off of sugar or say no, they can't eat candy or certain things because it makes them hyper. Well, I didn't find any definitive research to support that, but I believe that just based on adults that some children could very well be affected by sugar. But again, according to Dr. Thompson, she says that sugar is comparable to tobacco in keeping us addicted to its products. She says that the sugar industry pushed federal health recommendations to limit fat intake for decades, despite the fact that the real culprit in a myriad of health problems is sugar. And I guess if, the industry has a large enough lobby system in place, I guess you can affect the outcome of almost anything here in America if the lobbyists in that particular industry, if they do a really good job. But I think it's one of those things that people don't want to acknowledge because sugar tastes good to many people. There are some people that aren't addicted to sweets, but for the most part, sugar tastes good, and people, they desire to have it. And so, they don't investigate to see the problems that it can create with their health. It says that sugar changes the brain chemistry in ways that are comparable to nicotine and addictive drugs, resulting in more sweet cravings. Sugar just doesn't impact us on what we consume today. Let me see, I can't read my own writing. Okay, it affects our brains to want more the next day. And I know that that's true because it when you think about it, it doesn't, you don't get up, if you eat sugar and eat a lot of it in one day, you don't get up the next day and say, I had a lot of sugar yesterday. I ate too many sweet things, and I'm really going to work on not eating a lot of sweet stuff today. And you may say that, but doing that often it's not followed with the proper action. So it says that the intensity of the sugar over brains is the processing on a daily basis. It's hijacking our dopamine reward system exactly the same way that highly addictive drugs do. And that makes sense to me. You see a lot of studies in terms of addiction, and I don't know if the amount of studies regarding sugar specifically is at the same level that studies are for addiction, but I think that it should be, because if sugar is creating the problems in our bodies that the research suggests, we don't necessarily even need more research. We need more information on how to curb our desire to have more sugar than we should. It says the number one thing that we should consider doing if we are addicted to sugar is to just cut back on sweets and desserts. And that's very easy to say, but I know when I go to the store, you know how at the checkout counter, when you go to the store, how they have not only candy, but they have cookies, and they have those little cases with soda or fruit juices in them. Well, it's all designed to get your attention, because it's a quick fix, and most of it I notice at certain grocery stores here in Los Angeles, it's always something is on sale. Some aspect of the candy is on sale, and some aspect of the pastry is on sale. So it's very easy to make the choice to to buy something sweet. Whereas it's a little different. I notice in the cookie, they call it the cookie and the cracker aisle. They have a lot of big packages of cookies or crackers, and so it's set up a little differently. But by the time you get to the checkout, it's in a smaller amount, so you can more. At least I can. You can more easily justify buying. Oh well, I can have one package of cookies. That's not going to hurt me. I didn't buy a whole big bag of cookies. I just bought this little amount of cookies. So the psychology of helping get yourself into trouble is very interesting. It says that the main thing is that we need to also cut back on high carb processed foods. These foods are generally labeled as non-fat and low-fat, but what we have to be mindful of is that these foods, they use sugar to compensate for the amount of fat that's left out of the process. So, when you read the label and it says no fat or low fat, you're feeling good. You're feeling good because you think that, well, I'm reducing the fat, so this will help my weight situation. But you have to really pay attention, because to give you the taste that you desire, when they take the fat out, they put more sugar in. So it's important to really pay attention to that. But it says that sugar changes the way the body processes hormones like insulin and leptin. And leptin is the chemical that tells us that we're full. And it is always recommended that when you eat, some people, when they eat really fast, and you wonder, well, did they even taste their food? But they say that leptin lets us know when we are full, and if you I forgot my thought. It was something magnificent that I was going to say in reference to leptin, and hopefully it'll come back to me. But it says that sugar elevates insulin and blocks the body's ability to recognize leptin, so we can't recognize when we're full. And it's not a good thing to not be able to recognize when you're full, but they recommend that you slow down and you eat just forkfuls of food at a time. Don't get a big spoon or anything to eat with. Make sure you eat with a fork and eat forkfuls of food at a time. And when you hear your body say that I'm full, then put the fork down. But a lot of times, I guess, it's difficult for us to do that, and hence we have the problem with sugar that we do. Now, in talking about insulin, it is important to note that there are a lot of reasons, and some very serious reasons why your insulin levels, if they become elevated, why it's very dangerous. Now, I went to a diabetes support group. I do not have diabetes myself, but I went to one of their meetings, and they suggested that it's not sugar that's a problem when you have diabetes, that it's the carbs. And I didn't know that, because I was really feeling badly and saying that perhaps I shouldn't even go to this meeting, because it would make me have to address my issues with sugar. But elevated insulin levels are dangerous for many reasons. And they're really dangerous for men, perhaps more so than women, because elevated insulin levels can affect the sexual performance of men. And it says that according to Men's Fitness magazine, testosterone levels affect sexual desire, and if your testosterone levels are low, then you want to do something about that. It says that anything that depletes testosterone zaps a man's desire for sex. So, men, it's very important that you take a look at your level of sugar consumption, because it can really make a big difference in your sexual performance. It says that there are some foods in particular to pay attention to, such as legumes, which are products that can be derived from soy. Apparently, soy has a real devastating effect on the sexual health of men, and I didn't know that. So many products are made from soy that you just think that it's just it's okay, because it's in so many different products. But it says milk, tofu, sauces, and soy are very bad for a man's sexual health. And it says if you desire to become a dad, it's recommended that you delete or cut soy from your diet, because it can lower your sperm count. So that is certainly something to take into consideration if you're thinking of getting married and having a family. One of the main barriers to having children is having a low sperm count. So if you want to increase your sperm count, definitely check your consumption of soy. Another culprit regarding men's sexual health is processed carbs. It says that in 1829, Dr. Sylvester Graham created Dr. Graham's Honey Biscuit. And Dr. Graham's Honey Biscuit is what we know today as graham crackers. And it says that his intent in creating these biscuits in 1829 was to, as he called it, to suppress carnal desires or masturbation. That was what he had in mind. But it says that although his assertion was not scientifically proven, it is believed that he was onto something. And apparently, what it is believed that he was onto is that refined carbohydrates, such as the ones found in graham crackers, can affect testosterone levels, but it can also raise a man's estrogen levels. And if his estrogen levels are high, then it makes it depletes his testosterone. And testosterone is a very important hormone. So, again, these are things to consider if you're planning to get married and have a family. Have all of these things checked out, because you want to have healthy and wonderful and bright children. And I know sometimes we don't think to do all of these things, but you know what? I am a big proponent of having genetic testing and, whatever other kind of testing that might be necessary if you're planning to get married, because it can reveal certain things and you will know what to do in order to have healthy children. So it's just something to keep in mind. The other concern regarding men's sexual health and testosterone and just healthy insulin levels overall is the consumption of alcohol. It is believed by many people, that when you social drinking in particular, when you get off work and you come home and you have some alcohol, they're not talking about that, but they are talking about people who have a problem with overindulging with alcohol, and men in particular. It can wreak havoc on your hormone levels, and this too is certainly not something you want to do if you're planning on becoming a dad. And just in terms of your overall sexual health, it's very important not to overindulge, because high alcohol levels causes erectile difficulties. It causes trouble achieving orgasms and premature ejaculation. Now, I understand that many of these things, people find it really difficult to discuss and to talk about, but just because it may be difficult to discuss and talk about, it is something that you should have an awareness of. If you want to be a sexually healthy male, these are some of the things that you want to think about and give some thought to. Another consideration that they suggest for males is that you should cut down on foods with hormones or high levels of antibiotics, because foods that contain added hormones or antibiotics can unbalance a man's natural hormones when consumed in excess, and sometimes affect secretions that are very important, such as semen, sweat, urine, and it can also have a major effect on your breath. So this is according to sex coach Amy Levine. And one of the main culprits sometimes in preventing pregnancy is a very low sperm count. So one of the main culprits to that can be eating a lot of beef. It's okay to eat beef, but consuming a lot of it can have a direct effect on the hormones and the antibiotics. And so if you're told that your sperm count is low, or that you're having issues with semen, these are some of the things that you should perhaps talk to your doctor about, because again, this is it plays a major role in creating difficulties that's associated with testosterone levels. And sugar does affect your testosterone levels, so you want to keep that in mind. And the bottom line, it says, is that eating too much of any food is not good for your libido and your sex drive. And so keeping all of these things in check is extremely important. And often, I guess it's for the women in your life, it's very difficult to get men to go to the doctor. But perhaps if you women share with them the devastating effect that sugar can have moving forward in a relationship, it might be a little bit easier to convince them to pay attention to these little things, because I can't imagine most men really worried about, oh, well, my sugar intake is really high and I need to do something about that. But as the woman in their lives, be supportive of them in getting these levels under control, because it'll keep them a lot healthier and a lot fit well into old age. Well, I'm going to go to break, and when I come back, I'm going to talk about some of the effects that the issues of hormones has with women. So stay with me. I'll be right back.
Mastering math can be big fun. Fun for you and everyone. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Why not turn math time into fun time with Math Maze, the new game craze? Get yours today at mathmaze.us.
Mom, now you can help your son master math and have big fun. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Make sure your child owns the skills necessary for success in high school algebra. Get it now. Mathmaze.us. Mathmaze.us.
And now you can help your daughter play it like you know you oughta. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Math Maze cards contain both Spanish and English. Get yours today at mathmaze.us. That's mathmaze.us.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining me for the Carolyn Holt Show tonight. We're talking about what I call public enemy number one, and that's our addiction to sugar, and my addiction to sugar in particular. But sugar can really wreak havoc on your overall health. It's not just in terms of in the last segment I was talking about men's sexual health, but it can cause a lot of issues. Tooth decay, which is really something that's often overlooked, but sugar is not good for your teeth at all. So it is important that if you love sugar like I do, then find yourself a great dentist so that you can prevent some long-term things that will really work in terms against you, in terms of your heart and in terms of other issues with your health. But I wanted to share with women some of the ways that sugar affects not only their sexual health, but their health overall. And one of the ways, the problem with testosterone in women, it can cause an imbalance. And when testosterone is imbalanced in women, it reduces their sexual desire. And if you want to rev up your sexual desire, lessening the amount of sugar that you eat will make a big difference, because it is said that while we're only supposed to have about 6 teaspoons of sugar per day, most women have about 22 to 25 teaspoons of sugar. So we are really overdoing the amount of sugar that we should have on a daily basis. And I know that I certainly don't sit down and count or think about how much sugar I'm eating, but I know that I should. I've learned that it is very important to read labels and to follow the doctor's advice, because I do struggle with high blood pressure. And I notice, just even though I take medication, I can sometimes feel the effect when I've had too much sugar to eat, and especially eating a lot of sugar and no vegetables. I can feel it. So it is just so important to pay attention to the amount of sugar that you're consuming, because it does reduce sexual desire. It also increases body fat. And since women store fat a lot differently from men, this is something you certainly want to pay attention to. And especially women who have weight gain in specific areas. There are some women who gain weight all over, but many times women struggle with weight gain in the middle section, in the thigh area, sometimes upper body, and many times the culprit is sugar. Most people want to believe that it is their consumption of fat, and that can play a major role, but sugar intake is certainly something to monitor. It lowers muscle mass, and muscle mass is one of those things that you really have to pay attention to as you get older. You want to, if you're not already enrolled, you certainly want to get yourself enrolled in an exercise class where you can, use weights and different things to increase muscle mass. And I know that as we get older, I don't think most people are thrilled and excited saying, I can't wait to get in the gym and work out. Now, I notice there's a new gym in the mid-city area, and every time I go by there, it is full. So I guess people are keeping their commitment that they made that they're going to do a lot more exercise for the new year. Well, if you are consuming too much sugar, then that's a very good thing. And I notice that people are really taking advantage of the gym. And if you're a woman, you certainly want to do that because building muscle mass is excellent for your overall health. Also, because sugar works on insulin, and insulin being a hormone that can affect your memory, I know that, as we get older, they call it the fuzzy memory syndrome, but as your hormone levels change or drop or fluctuate, it does affect your memory. And there have been studies done that suggest that for women in particular, because sugar does work on directly on your hormone level, this is certainly something that you should take into consideration as you get older and head toward menopause, because memory and menopause sometimes can go hand in hand, because you can forget things as you get older. And so if you want to boost that, then limiting your sugar intake is certainly something to take into consideration. Acne is another issue that sugar consumption can have a major effect on. And I thought as a woman, as you grew and as you got to be older, acne would not be a problem. But it's interesting how when your hormone levels drop, how acne can return. Perhaps not to the same level that it was when you were a teenager, but there are a lot of women that suffer with adult onset acne, and much of it is hormone related, and a lot of times you simply need to go to the doctor and have your levels checked, and there are many different situations that the doctor can offer that can perhaps help with the acne. The other unfortunate side effect of too much sugar can be irregular menstrual cycles. And just like in terms of men and their sexual health, your overall sexual health is important as a woman. And irregular menstrual cycles can affect your desire if you desire to become a mom and have children. That is certainly something you want to get tested and checked out if you plan on getting married and raising a family. And lastly, hair loss. Hair loss can be devastating for women, especially, if they have some terminal illness like cancer in particular. A lot of women lose their hair if they develop cancer. But hair loss is one of the issues that's associated with hormone issues. And so sugar can unfortunately directly affect that as well. So when you think about it, sugar can cause a myriad of health problems and issues. And if you don't want that, you have to do as I am doing, and that is acknowledge that you do have a problem, and a very addictive problem at that, because as I've stated earlier, sugar has a lot of addictive properties, and you have to do just like I'm doing is really think about and start to notice where you're getting the sugar in your life. And for me, it's pastries, and I'm going to do a lot better and stop going to the store and being tempted by the pastries in the checkout in the checkout line, because my rationale is because it's a smaller amount. It's okay to go ahead and partake and indulge, but sugar is a real serious problem, and I know moving forward, I certainly want to do a better job of my consumption, and I hope that some of the information that I've shared with you tonight will help you to do a better job as well. As you know, always on this show, our goal is to help you move from misery to magnificence and from subpar to spectacular. And I hope that my discussion about sugar will help to get you on track and get you to thinking about your consumption and the reduction of sugar in your life. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Good night, everybody.
Math can be big fun for you and everyone. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Sing, play it, Math Maze.
Why not turn math time into fun time with Math Maze, the new game craze? Get yours today at mathmaze.us.
Mom, now you can help your son master math and have big fun. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Sing, play it. Math Maze.
Make sure your child owns the skills necessary for success in high school algebra. Get it now. Mathmaze.us. Mathmaze.us.
And now you can help your daughter play it like you know you oughta. Play it each and every day. Master math the easy way. Say it, play it. Math Maze.
Math Maze cards contain both Spanish and English. Get yours today at mathmaze.us. That's mathmaze.us.
Come the other hand.